to be a role play partner?
Yes.
I get the new rope stamp.
The new what? Oh, that was a gift from one of my girls. Okay, guys, so we're gonna go right. We're rushing through. Okay, we're gonna stay on schedule as much as possible today. We got Joe Carteret from our Charlotte guru over here. Rated. What's your titles? What's your
Just
awards?
Joe.
Yeah, right. Just Joe.
Yeah.
No, Joe's pretty awesome. Joe's awesome. You guys are super lucky to have him here. Do you want me to pull up PowerPoint first, or do you want it? So you want to introduce yourself, and then I will just follow you with PowerPoint.
Cool. How's everybody doing? It's a bigger crowd than the last time I was here, which is a good thing. We had a couple of times in between where we weren't able to make it, and I slowly started to see the recaps and started to see the room grow, and I was like, wow, how did they get everybody in there? And then when Charity was giving all the leaders or the folks who were going to be speaking a heads up on the tickets sold, we saw that number get to 150 RSVPs for the room, and then way more than that for the Zoom, I think. Correct? I don't know the final number, but so that was exciting. It means that a lot of you find value in coming here, and I know the team, Tina, the Access Group, appreciates it, and I am honored to be able to be a part of it. So today we're going to keep things pretty simple. I did put it on slides just to add a visual element, but there's not a ton on the slide. It's more about what we're going to talk about. So what we're going to talk about is focusing on your fee first. I want everybody to kind of right now in the room and carry this with you when you leave, hopefully, is I think the most important thing to do. I met with my team on Tuesday. We had our typical Tuesday meeting. And of course, this was all we talked about were the changes. And then most importantly, making sure that as a team, they understood our alignment and how we were going to move forward in executing all these new requirements and the forms that come with them. So the first thing I said is we got to get our mindset right? So at the end of the day, if you go to the next slide, it's really all about mindset, because we can all sit in here today and we can be stuck in July 31st, right? And we can sit here and know, which is going to be normal, how things used to work, because that's what we're used to doing, right? I started talking to some folks the other day, team leaders of small groups, big groups. I talked to several managing BICs yesterday at an event that we hosted. And all of us really came to this conclusion that right now, the folks that are getting on Facebook and posting in the groups and they're negative and they're bashing this ruling and this and that, guess what? At the end of the day, they're wasting time, because August 1st was coming whether we liked it or not, right? And so I think that comes down to mindset. I think people are fighting the change. They don't want to see the change. They're trying to come up with all these reasons why it's not going to work. They're trying to come up with all these additional documents that don't make sense. It all comes down to their mind and their willingness to move forward. At the end of the day, a little louder?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
A little louder for the people in the back.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what it comes down to is all of us in this room can move into today, which is August 1st, and still do business and be very profitable. But it's all about what we want to sign up for, right? So quick quote. Tony Robbins, back where you were, no big deal. That's all right. It's all good. Oh, Mary's getting drunk.
Mary's coming up later.
You revealed too soon. She doesn't know about that picture. Now she does. So real quick, you need more volume? Wow. All right, I'm going to start hollering. It's going to be an Italian dinner at my household. All right, so as soon as you truly commit to making something happen, the how will reveal itself. But before we get to the how, we got to make sure you're even wanting to go in that direction. So it's really your choice where you want to go. That's a roadblock. Many of you have heard me. I know my team really hates when I talk about this because it comes up in every single training we do. I'm big on roadblocks, okay? And the analogy of today when you drove here, some of you, maybe not all of you, but definitely us from Charlotte, the first thing we did is we plugged in the address to get here into Waze, okay? And then what we did is we hit go and we said, oh great, our route's ready to go. It's gonna take us 2.5 hours, whatever. In our mind, that gave us comfort, right? Because we were like, oh, well, this machine's got us. We're gonna get there. It's gonna take us 2.5 hours, no big deal. We can turn the jams on, we can put it in the screen where we can see it, just cruise on down the interstate. We do that every day. We do it with buyers, we do it with sellers, we do it with our family. When we get home after a hard day's work, we just kind of move through life, and when something comes up, that interrupts our comfortability, it's called a roadblock. Same thing when we're driving down the road and Waze starts flashing and says, oh hell, somebody got in a wreck on the interstate in front of you. What are you gonna do? What's the first thing we do when that happens? We hit a button that says reroute, right? Okay, why the hell can't we do that in our business, right? So that's what this is about. It's about reroute, because you have two options. One of them being is we can be on Facebook pissing and moaning and complaining and talking about the DOJ and this and that. Who cares, right? Or the other option, the other route, is we can hit reroute and we can say, I've got 3 mouths to feed at home, which is my story, and they're gonna be fed come hell or high water, right? And so what has been prior to August 1st, it's over. If we're gonna have a real estate license, if we're gonna be in the real estate business, we're gonna do what the government says. And if we don't, then you're gonna be in a lot of trouble, right? So I know the route that I'm on. I know that I've already hit reroute, okay? This analogy can apply to everything you do throughout your day. You gotta hit reroute if your plan is to continue growing, right? In your business, in your life, in your relationship. You gotta pivot, you gotta figure it out. So move to the next slide. What we're gonna look at here is a couple of things. I had the same conversation with my team. We set the mood when we were going into our team meeting, and I said, look guys, what's happening today, and this was on Tuesday, we know how we show up. Now to give you a backstory, on our team for the past 24 months, it has been a policy of our team that we do not go on a showing without a buyer's agency agreement. We just don't. We get too busy, especially during like the craziness of the market. Like we were running around 100 miles an hour. We didn't have time for it, and quite honestly, if we wanted to kind of be a little cocky, we didn't have to. We didn't have to show up and not have something on paper, you know, putting in concrete that relationship. And I think it's important for you to understand it's a relationship that works both ways. That form is not just to say, oh, so I can get paid, right? It's a lot of protections. It's a lot of things that you're saying you're gonna show up for. And painting the picture for the client, the buyer or seller, whatever it may be, that this is what we are gonna do for you in combination with this beautiful buyer consultation I just went through with you, right? When you get a moment. The next slide. Yeah,
Well,
sorry. I didn't say
Didn't
it
work?
clearly, it was my fault.
No, I hit the button, but I didn't.
No worries. So two things you're looking at, and this is my team, this is our business, how we operate, okay? The left side, the white side over here is gonna be prior to August 1st. The right side is going to be as of today. If you look at them, there's not much difference, right? We operated prior to today the same way, minus a few forms that we now gotta fill out. We also do commercial real estate. And in commercial real estate, the way we are now gonna be operating as agents is the same thing. Prior to writing an offer, you secure your compensation. There's a document you send over to the other broker and say, hey, I love your building. My client loves your building. We're gonna make an offer, but let's get this out of the way. Sign here. And they already know the routine. We've been doing that for as long as I've been practicing any kind of commercial real estate. So it's kind of in our blood when it comes to the other side of what we offer. Now, transitioning back to the conversation around our team and the way we've been operating for 24 months, the only thing that changes today is Form 220, and I had to look at it. Oh, right down here, communicate the contract in Form 220 to all parties. Same thing you do already. You send the lender a copy of certain things that we've executed, the attorney, you name it. At the end of the day, that's the only thing that changes today versus yesterday, other than a few little asterisks in here. So we're gonna go through it real quick. First, contact. I don't care how you got this lead, it's irrelevant, okay? Met them on the phone, you got a Zillow, it doesn't matter. Now, I can't speak to Zillow Flex. I think they're gonna have some rules that you gotta follow in certain ways. That's on you, work that out with your leaders. Buyer consultation. Okay, so now you're gonna do your buyer consultation. Whatever yours may look like, the 4 things that stand out for us is we're gonna talk about their goals. I think a lot of us don't do that enough. We worry about ours, or the way that we do things for everyone. So we talk about their goals first. We talk about our value prop, like why are we different? Why should you hire the Carteret Group versus, someone else? We talk about the buying process, just the very basics. Here's how you buy a house and what to expect. And then getting paid. Getting paid is the last thing we talk about. And quite honestly, there's sometimes we don't even have to bring it up. But we also want to make sure there's clarity, because what we don't want is, again, to waste our time with someone or waste their time by not painting a picture that has to be crystal clear. And we have to just state it as it is. You got to get used to being blunt with stuff. Here's how we get paid. Here's how you're going to pay us. And if you can't live up to that obligation, we need to kind of talk through that now. We need to talk through what that looks like. Now, prior to August 1st, yeah, sure, we could say, like everybody in this room has probably said, oh, don't worry about it. The seller's going to pay our fee, right? We've all said it, I'm sure. If you haven't, you're lying, or you haven't been in real estate long enough. Or you've said, don't worry, my services are free, right? All terms that we can no longer say anymore. So going into that, we made sure they understood how we got paid. And we didn't waver from that, guys, because what was coming next when we wrapped up that consultation was, you're going to be getting a DocuSign coming through your email. That's our buyer agreement that the state requires us to have. And quite honestly, guys, I would dummy it down. I would say, hey, we have a document. It's a simple state form that they require us to have. At some point, we've got to make sure we're in compliance. If we ever get audited, our license can be on the line. All factual information. I'll have that to you momentarily. Now, if they had a question when they picked up the form and they started reading through it, sure, give me a call. Let's talk through that and let's answer specifics that you may have. Nothing changes. You're still going to be doing that today, okay? Next, the buyer agency signed. We get that back from them. Same yesterday as it's going to be going forward. Set up a search. You're going to set up your search however you do so, right? You're going to send Form 220. Now, you do you. There's a lot of conversation around, oh, Form 220, I got to make sure I get that before I even open a door, or Form 220, I got to make sure I have that the moment I tell that agent we're interested in their house. You do you. I have my opinion on Form 220, because here's reality. Form 220 doesn't mean jack if you don't have a seller that is signing up for the offer that you send their way. Because guess what? You're not getting paid if you can't get your offer accepted, right? So whether you send 220, based on whatever you and your team, or if you're an individual, whatever you decide, if you send it before you go to show the house, or if you send it right before you go to send the offer, it's the same thing. But guess what can happen? That seller can sign 220, or some folks that are out here having their 220 already pre-signed, which I do not recommend pre-signing and posting that somewhere on the internet. If you do post it, I would have it not signed by the seller. That would be the way around that. But you go and you get that form back. All parties have signed 220. And then you're sitting there pounding out an offer, and you're going to send that over to the listing agent. Guess what happens when you send that $450,000 offer on a $500,000 listing? They're going to counter you, most likely. But guess what else is on the line? Form 220. Because now that they were going to pay you 20%, just throwing a wild number out there, but I'd love that.
Thank you.
Now that's going to be 15. That's going to be 10. They're going to redline that. They're going to send it back to you and say, hey, here's our counter offer. Make sure to pay attention to Form 220. Okay? 220 means nothing until you are locked into a contract. So I just encourage you not to get that in your head. Don't get too wrapped up about 220. Do we have to have it? Absolutely. Do you want to make sure you're in compliance and have it in the right order, meaning you need to have it before you make an offer? Sure. But don't get all panicky and freak out when you get a counter offer and they've also redlined 220, because it's going to happen, I promise you. Now, the reverse of that is you could use it to your advantage. There's going to be times where you don't send 220 up front because your buyer is going to say, hey, I want this house. Take it back a year and a half when the market, you didn't put no concessions on your offer, right? It's the same thing. I'm going to pay my own compensation. I don't need you to send it to the seller to ask them to pay for things. So there's going to be times where a 220 is not going to come up during your deal. So just keep that in mind as well. And you can use it to your advantage. If I'm up against Eric, where are you, Eric? In a offer on a house, and I know it's going to be in a multiple offer situation, and 95% of the agents are going to be including 220. I'm not. If my buyer's down for it, I'm going to say, hey, here's how we're going to win this. You're going to show up and we're going to keep this as clean as possible. Sure, do I want to get my buyer the best deal? Absolutely. But if the buyer tells me, Joe, I do not want to lose this house for my wife, we're not going to lose this house, but here's the sacrifice, okay? So use it to your advantage. Go and show the house. So after you secure 220, if that's what you plan to do, go show the house. Prepare your offer. I put the star there because I want you to keep in mind you've already sent off 220. You need to keep that in the back of your mind because it also needs to come into play when you are talking to your buyer about that offer you're sending. Just because the rest of the offer's clean doesn't mean that 220 isn't going to come up in that seller's mind. Because what is the seller's goal? To get their net, right? So at the end of the day, 220 is just like sending over a due diligence repair request. You're asking for something that will come up. Negotiations. I am a firm believer that if you are not a good negotiator, you better start hitting the books and getting in front of a role play partner, because negotiations are going to be even more critical now than they were July 31st, okay?
Joe, can you repeat that a little louder for everybody to hear?
In the back, yes, absolutely. Coming straight from a sales driver back there. Negotiations is going to be one of 3 skills that at the end I'm going to tell you you have to have today, and if you can't figure it out, you better figure something else out, because it's just not going to work. And that's just keeping it real with love. Negotiations are going to be critical. Everything is a negotiation, because again, what you're doing is pulling compensation. You're pulling the fee away. You're separating things out, and everything's an option. Everything's a negotiation. So keep that in mind. All right. Communicate, contract, and form 220 to all parties. That's our process. It's the same as it was July 31st. It's just a little bit different way in which we're sending something, right? Our team has always said and reminded our buyer. Lindsay's a new agent. She's right under 90 days or right at 90 days. She's had 2 closed transactions. One was a lease also. She got another one under contract right now. And one of her deals, we ran into a situation where the seller was not paying the fee that we put on our buyer's agency agreement. And it was a large enough amount. And I didn't even say, before I could get it out of my mouth in a text message to Lindsay, she's telling me, and I'm excited for her. She's got another one under contract, or she's getting ready to put it under contract, and they're going back and forth. And I'm advising her a little bit on negotiations, on some slick stuff the other agent was trying to pull on her. And I said, right as I was typing, this would be my approach to address the difference. She said, oh, and I pulled, one out of your book, and here's what I did. And I told my clients, but she secured the rest of her fee. And she did it as a seller credit. That's the old way, of course. That's how we had to do it. But the point being is, we just state what our fee is. And if there's a difference, we just go back to them and say, hey, remember when we had this conversation? I'm a big proponent of using a CRM. If you are not using a CRM, you better figure it out. A CRM saved my butt in a lawsuit here 2 years ago, unrelated to buying and selling houses. It was real estate related, but it was a contest that we had put on. And the lady that we had been trying to get a hold of for over a year tried to sue us for a breach of contract. She tried to tell the judge that we weren't fulfilling our obligations in the contest or whatever. Thank God I was using Follow Up Boss, because all communication was going through my Follow Up Boss. I printed it off and I handed it to the judge, and the case was dismissed. Same thing, guys, like when you're talking to your buyers, even more today. Hey, remember when I told you about this fee? Yes, you signed it, but we also talked about it when I told you, okay, we're making an offer on this house. Here's what we're offering. Here's our terms that we both agree on. And oh, by the way, they are not offering what our fee is. I want to make sure you're good with that and you want to proceed. Make sure that's in writing. Do not call them over the phone. Or if you do, follow it up with something in writing, okay? And that's protecting them and us, right? Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide.
Do that, Linda.
And this is Mary. There was water in that bottle, of course. So now you're saying, oh, well, let's talk about how this all comes to life. I've told you what we do, told you that we've been doing this for about 24 months, other than a few documents, and we've been successful. We get our fee. We know what our fee is. There's no clarity. I shared with this, I think last time, or some of you I may have shared this individually. We've lost probably 5 or 6 leads that we didn't get. 3 of them were folks that were needing an agent to open a door because their agent was out on vacation. And that would have just been, you know, a bomb for us, right? We wouldn't have been getting that offer, or that deal, excuse me. And the other two we lost, and that's okay. Maybe it was 200,000, maybe it was $1 million, I don't know, but you win some, you lose some. But what we refuse to do is back away from the way that we operate as a team and the way we always have, just because somebody says come and open a door for us and all we're thinking about is commission breath. We're thinking, oh, a check. Once you get past that and you're willing to say no to things, whether it's your morals, your integrity, whatever it may be, you just got to stand by it. And I truly believe that everything works out in the long run, okay? So Mary's gonna come up, I'm gonna put her on the spot, and I'm gonna make her role play 2 scenarios. One is gonna be a buyer that, we'll stick with the open house idea. A buyer that comes to your open house, you're the listing agent, you're sitting your open house, buyer comes in, you go through your spiel, whatever it may be, and they're like, great, yeah, I'd love to work with you, okay? You're gonna represent me, or someone that's with you at the open house is gonna represent me. So a buyer with representation. The second thing we're gonna do is a buyer that says, I hate agents. I don't want representation. So a no representation situation, okay? Come on up here, what are you hiding back there? All right, Mary, some of you know her, some of you don't. Mary and I have been working together for almost 5 years. I'm not crying, it's an eyelash. It's been a long time.
All the memories.
Yeah, I was looking through pictures a minute ago for the slide, and there's a lot of memories. This was one of them from 2021, because I see Mary's planner that she loves. Mine is on my phone. Mary loves the good written planner. But 2021, I'm sure you can imagine wine was needed during that time. It's a good bottle of wine too. That's Stag's Leap Artemis. Nice job there, Mary. Yeah, drinking it straight out of the bottle. It's like she was drinking Boone's Farm or something. So what we're gonna do is, do you want to be the agent, or what do you want to?
I'll be the buyer.
Be the buyer.
I'll be the buyer.
All right, so don't be tough on me. So this is just an example, guys. We're going to keep this low key. This is a very basic kind of approach. This is how we do it. And it's very simple for everyone in this room to be able to do the exact same thing. A lot of it comes down to fear. A lot of it comes down to you're just a non-confrontational person. That's okay. If you practice, if you understand your forms, if you go through, you role play with a friend, a colleague, I would do friends and family because they're going to be brutally honest with you. It becomes comfortable. And so then the comfortability, the confidence that you build is going to push some of that to the side, because it's no longer a confrontation. You're just sharing with them the way things go, right? And the way things are going to be as you're starting that relationship, which is important to start from day one, okay? So we're in an open house. We'll go that route, right? We'll do a buyer that wants, well, I'll let you just play, whether you want representation or you don't.
Okay.
Good? Welcome to our open house. How are you?
Oh my gosh, thank you. I love this house.
You do? Well, how did you find out about our open house?
Well, I saw it on the sign and I thought I'd stop in.
Okay, great. Well, we did a good job with our signs,
Yes.
which we do. Most neighborhoods it's a little obnoxious,
Yes.
but I'm glad that you
But
saw it
that's
and it
okay.
worked. So
Absolutely.
welcome. So real quick, I won't hold you up. I'm not one to follow you around and hold hands. 4-bedroom, 3-bath. You probably saw that on one of the sites,
I
and when you
did.
looked it up, it's about 2,500 square foot. Okay, we currently have it listed for about $750. And one of my favorite features of the house is the kitchen. The other is going to be the primary. Both make sure that you enjoy, you spend some time in there. And I want you to visualize being in this house, cooking your favorite meals, entertaining your guests, and then going and laying your head down in that bedroom. How's that sound?
Sounds
All right,
good.
listen,
Sounds good.
I'll be down here because we got a lot of people that are coming behind you, and I want to make sure everybody's taken care of. You give me a shout out if you need anything, and I'll be happy to answer all that I can.
Okay, now I have a question. I've heard
Yeah.
all this stuff on the news, you
Yep.
know? So I don't want to pay you.
Oh, that's good.
Like-
Well, hey,
Like,
you know what?
I'm not paying you.
I get it.
If
Get
you want to write me an offer, that's great.
Yeah.
And yes, I want this house, but I am not paying you.
Great. You know what? I actually say the same thing when I walk into my doctor's office. I don't want to pay them either. And actually, I would love to be able to go in there and that happen. But reality is this is my job, and I take a lot of pride in it, and I love doing what I do because I get to help folks like you see beautiful homes, okay? But I understand it's also your right to have representation or not. So since you don't want to have representation, let me just give you the quick rundown on what that would look like should you want to actually buy this house. How's that sound?
That sounds good? Yeah.
Great. So real quick, what that means is I am going to maintain my integrity in everything that I tell you. I'm going to be morally, ethically on top of my game. I'm going to make sure that you understand the legal things that I have to tell you about that the state requires. And I'm gonna give you the basic documents that you need to successfully make the right decision on placing an offer on this house.
Okay.
Outside of that, we do not offer to show you around other houses. We're not going to advise you on what an offer should look like. We're not going to help you negotiate that offer. We're not gonna help you negotiate any repair, any kind of credits, things like that. So is that clear? You understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so you still wanna move forward and not have representation?
Yeah, definitely. And then you can go ahead and set up the inspection for me and you'll meet me there, right?
Yeah, so that's really not how it works, but I tell you what, here's how I'll kind of make this a little easier for you. I've had other folks that have come in and they've said the same thing, and they've had a bad experience, and I'd hate if that's something that you've experienced in the past, maybe on a past real estate transaction. I hate that for you, but we do things a lot different. And so what I would like to do, since you're already here anyways, is why don't we do this after the open house, you tour the house, we can come back together, I'll buy you a coffee, and give me 15 minutes of your time to walk you through why we're different, and the difference between not having representation and having us represent you, not another agent, us represent you, and what that's going to look like. It'll take about 15 minutes of your time, and if you still don't want that representation, you get a free coffee out of it. Now, let me ask you this question. Based on what you've heard, and this beautiful house that you love, and you already went in with the mindset that you're probably gonna place an offer, is there anything holding you back that would cause you not to spend 15 minutes and get a free coffee?
I'll spend 15 minutes and get a free coffee.
Okay, great. So we'll do that at 2:30. I've got to wrap up the open house, and then what we'll do is we'll meet at the Starbucks right up here at the shopping center. How's that sound?
Sounds wonderful.
Perfect. Go take a look at the house and make note of everything you want to put in your offer, okay?
Great, thank you.
All right. So that's non-representation, okay? So, nice job. So two things. One is I went ahead and got the legalities out of the way, right? You got to be able to say that's basically exactly what you say. Is here's what we will do, here's what we can tell you, and what we can't, and what we're not gonna do for you. Again, starting from a place of transparency. Do not let them leave there thinking you're their agent, that you're gonna give them everything they need at all hours of the day and night. It's just not happening, okay? You gotta be clear from that moment, otherwise they're gonna run with it. The flip side is please try to flip them. Please try to turn them into a client. That's what we do as sales professionals, right? So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna take her to a coffee. She'll love the coffee. We're gonna cut up, we're gonna laugh and all those kind of things. I'm gonna share my buyer consultation, and by the time she leaves there, she's gonna understand why us representing her is in her best interest. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing worse than a non-represented buyer. First of all, it's gonna be a pain in your butt. Second of all is they are not represented, and I think it's important for everybody to have some kind of representation, okay? At the end of the day, we need to show them what we do, and that's our time to shine is during that buyer consultation, okay? So that's non-representation. Real quick, we'll go through representation. All right, so we'll do a different one. You call me, you get my number somehow, and you call me and you say, hey, I wanna buy a house.
Okay.
All right, you ready? Ring, ring, ring.
Hey, Joe, I hear you're Charlotte's best real estate agent, and I would love to buy a house from you.
I don't know who told you that, but I would still love to help you. No, great to meet you. My name's Joe, as obviously, what's your name?
Mary.
Mary,
Yeah.
very nice to meet you. So that's awesome. I really appreciate you calling me. How did you find me?
I heard from a friend.
Okay.
That they used you and they recommended you, came very highly recommended.
Perfect. Well, I always like to give credit where credit's due. What was your friend's name?
It would be Ryan.
Ryan, perfect. So Ryan, sold 123 Main Street, blah, blah. I recap like something we did for Ryan or maybe something special about Ryan. You want to kind of get that in there. So,
Okay, yeah.
are we not talking loud enough? Okay. So Ryan and Ella were amazing clients. We
Yes.
loved them. I can't believe they just had their second child. It's an amazing opportunity for their family. And now a big trip to New York where they're going to build their family a little further, huh?
Yes, we will miss them.
Perfect, perfect. Well, listen, I appreciate the call regardless. It's always nice to know that friends enjoy things that we did for them, and we always look to give that same experience to folks like yourself. So tell me a little bit about where you are now. Are you renting? Do you live in the Charlotte area, or?
Yeah, we're relocating to the Charlotte area with work.
From
so
where?
Looking for something. Yeah, we're coming from Maryland. Yeah.
Maryland.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, my assistant's from Maryland,
Yeah.
so what's nice about that is you got some expertise on our team.
Yeah.
She's gonna be able to make sure that you understand the difference between living in that crazy weather up there, and then also where you can find good crabs down here in Charlotte.
There
How's
we
that
go.
sound?
That's right.
Good.
Yeah.
Always try to find a connection, guys, to the city that they're coming from, because then they know that you know your crap, right? And it starts to kind of break the ice. Wonderful. Well, listen, tell me what you're looking for, because we've got a lot of stuff going on in Charlotte. It's a big place. We've got over about 2.5 million people in the region. What are you looking for? Tell me a little bit about the house, ideal area that you would like to be in, if that's something you've already figured out.
Yeah, just like, 4 beds, 3 baths, like to kind of be in a suburb,
Okay.
maybe a 30 to 45-minute commute to Charlotte.
Okay, great. Well, the good news is most everything's about 25 minutes to Center City, as long as you don't get caught up in traffic, and we'll talk about how you avoid that as well. Tell me what you're doing for work. You mentioned moving down here for your job.
Banking,
Banking, perfect. Which big bank?
Bank of America.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, hey, I've got an inside there as well. My assistant, her husband's actually an executive, a C-suite executive with Bank of America, and we'll make sure that we get you taken care of and they don't give you a hard time about your corporate reload. How's that sound?
Great, that sounds wonderful.
Speaking of corporate reload, is this going to be a corporate relocation, meaning that they've started the process, they're going to be supporting you in that journey down?
It is not.
It's not. Wonderful. I'm going to save money and not have to pay as much out in a
There you
referral
go.
fee. No, you don't tell them that. Great. Well, it doesn't matter either way. I just need to know to make sure we start the process off right. So listen, what I'm going to do is I need to understand a little bit more about your lifestyle. Are you bringing a family with you? Do you have children? Is it just yourself? What do you like to do when you're not working at the bank?
Just myself and my husband.
Okay, great. So for the sake of time, we speed that up. You get all their details. You understand their lifestyle, right? And then the very next thing is, listen, hey, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I really appreciate the call, but I'm going to get you back to work or whatever you got going on. I've got some homework to do. Here's my commitments, and I recap my action items. I'm going to do this, 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 and this. What I'd like to do is set up a formalized buyer consultation, because that's going to give you all the things we're going to be able to do to make your journey from Maryland down here to North Carolina the easiest trip you've ever made. And we're going to understand a little bit more about your needs, your goals, and your timelines to make sure they all align, and that we're giving you the best service we can. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Great. Let's do that Friday at 2 p.m. During that, there's a couple things we're going to talk about. As I mentioned, your goals, your timeline, and such. We're going to talk about how the process works down here in North Carolina, since you are coming from another state. We're going to dispel any kind of rumors you've heard about our state, the area, buying real estate, due diligence. We're going to talk about all those things. And then we're going to talk about what relationship looks like, what our relationship looks like with you, and we're going to talk about how we get paid, okay?
Great.
Sounds great. I'll talk to you Friday at 2 o'clock, and we'll get through that, and we'll get you rocking and rolling.
Thank
How's
you
that
so
sound?
much.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
That's the conversation. Okay, when you get into the conversation, you talk about the fee. Good job. What that's going to then look like is basically do your buyer consultation. When the fee comes up, if they press the issue, you're going to basically revert back to your value prop, because you want to remind them all the wonderful things that you do, and then remind them that's why they're paying you. It's fine to say what the process is of tomorrow about seller concessions and all that. You can bring that up. As a matter of fact, it's a good idea. But what's important is you remind them that ultimately they're responsible for your fee. You also remind them that asking for something is comparing it to asking for something to be fixed in the house. Give them, it's, apples to apples. It's the same type thing. And so it will depend on the house that you're looking for, and we'll revisit this conversation around pay when we get to the individual house, because it really is going to depend on the deal. It's going to depend on what we offer, how we offer it, how we structure that offer, right? But at the end of the day, guys, again, you just want to be as clear with them as possible from the get up. You don't want surprises. I think that's the most important piece, is no surprises. Mary, I'm going to put you on the spot, and then I'll let you kind of go do your thing. Okay. Based on how we've been doing it, what is your biggest hangups when you're getting into that conversation with a first time or a first meet? I shouldn't say first time home buyer, but a new lead that you've got. In our process that we've done in getting the buyer's agreement signed, what would you say is the biggest hangup?
I think it's explaining the process and where the fees will eventually come from. However, when we discussed it on Tuesday, we are making sure that the buyers know that ultimately this is part of their closing costs.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's the end. If we can get a concession for them from the seller, then that's a bonus. If we don't, they are responsible for it. And I think just moving forward, that just has to be our mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the buyers have to understand.
Okay, good. Let's give Mary a round of applause. I put her on the spot. She doesn't like being put on the spot. So, guys, here's the next thing. We'll just move. Relationships. I just want to talk about that. I shared this quote last time I was here about relationships. You can go to the next slide as well. Relationships are going to be critical. Don't get on Facebook and talk about this, and don't start arguing about it and blasting. Also, watch what you're saying to other agents. You're getting into these groups and you're arguing back and forth. I'm one that loves to stand by things for principle and love to debate. But relationships are going to be even more critical today and going forward than they were before, because at the end of the day, it reverts back to negotiations. And negotiations is going to be where it's all said and done. Okay, so if you want to fight for something, you want to get something paid, you got to make sure whoever's on the other side of the deal is somebody that wants to work with you. And you better bet yourself that when you send an offer over to a seller's agent or a listing agent, and they see who's on the other side of that deal, if you've pissed them off in the past for whatever reason, that is going to come up when they tell the seller about that seller concession or signing Form 220. So just keep that in mind. Couple of things that you are going to see, guys, and like don't let this surprise you, but I just ask that you tap back into your mindset that who cares? Who cares what other people are going to do in their business? You're going to see flat fees. You're going to see tier offerings with packages, which was mentioned earlier. You're going to see agents turning into quantity, like how many deals can we stack up? Let's focus on that versus a fee. You're going to see activity-based, where people say, I'm going to go show you a house and you're going to pay me $500. Okay? At the end of the day, I personally don't think that the long play there makes sense, but I respect the agents that are going to do that. Maybe that's their approach. Encouraging direct to listing agent. Hey, you're going to see marketing. Call me. I'm the listing agent. Reach out to me directly. I'm the listing agent. That's going to happen. I'd recommend that you get better at getting listings, would be my opinion there. Agents exiting the business. It's going to happen. We need to be honest with ourselves about it. I hope all of you are signing up to reroute in the right direction and not let that become even a question. But they're going to do it because of fear, their lack of mindset change, their work ethic, and their business model. Yes, you're going to have to pivot, guys. You're going to have to figure out your business model. There's going to be tweaks that you make. All these things could be options for you, and none of them are wrong. It's whatever you want to do in your business or your team is going to do. So just be mindful, be open to that. Stop the chatter online about, discount agent, this guy, that guy, whatever it may be. Good for them for not selling their value. Good for them for not getting the listings that I'm going to get, because the people that I work with are Nordstrom and not Dollar Tree. Nothing wrong with Dollar Tree. Let me clarify that. I got to clarify that. But what I'm saying is I shop at Dollar Tree with a purpose, and I shop at Nordstrom with a purpose. I use this analogy when I'm talking to my clients sometimes, especially if I'm walking into a $1.5 million house, because hiring me is going to get the client that is going to align with the audience that you want. Hiring somebody else that you just paid to put on MLS is going to bring you a totally different audience, if an audience at all. So that's where I go with that, okay? So this is what you're going to see. You can move to the next one. Real quick, change your mindset. Print all the documents and get very familiar. Build muscle memory. Align with leaders that are aligned with you on the growth mindset. Build out your buyer consultation. Role play, we talked about that. Get comfortable with being blunt. You got to be honest with folks. If you're not comfortable with having those tough conversations, you got to work on that. Show up the new you. How you move forward is with that right mindset. Look at your business model. If you need to make tweaks, feel free. My recommendation, if you do a tier packet, something like that, try holding on to that during a listing presentation and not allowing that to be the very first thing you pull out of your pocket. You could use it to your advantage. That's how we're going to approach it. Keep your partners informed. Everybody in the transaction needs to know what's going on and the changes. Sit down with your lender over lunch and go through the change documents, because they probably have not gone through them, in some cases, not all. Educate your Reels, Instagram, all that kind of stuff for your buyers and sellers. Get creative with your options of buyers, because we all have to be realistic. They're going to be first-time home buyers, things like that we're going to have to tweak our approach based on the changes. Network more than ever to build those relationships. Watch your approach and sharpen your skills. The 3 skills that are going to be even more critical today: public speaking, emotional intelligence, engaging leaders and different emotional intelligence there, and then negotiating. All right. We are going to do some follow-up training. I'd mentioned it in a message app, some role-playing stuff like that. I will share that out, and you can figure out how we get it to everybody if you're interested. More to come on that. And then I'm always available for questions or a quick call, and happy to help any way that I can. Good? The rest of the slides are just promotional things. Yeah. I think they are. Yeah. This is our transaction business. I always throw that up at the end, because if you need a TC partner, let us know. We have a company that provides that. Any questions? Oh, we're going to save questions for the end.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Yes.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Okay. Okay, let's stop recording. Stop it.